I want to speak to the concept of dignity because that's been raised here tonight, that we're concerned about people's dignity and that it's somehow an affront to their dignity to acknowledge the fact that they acted illegally in violation of our sovereignty, which is another interesting word that gets bandied about quite a bit when it's convenient, but never seemingly when it's advantageous to our own citizens. But we have sovereignty too. And the maintenance of our dignity as American citizens and as residents of the state of Minnesota is rooted in large part in the recognition of that sovereignty. And that's what seems to be forgotten. There's an entire class of Americans who have been forgotten. And, I know that there are certain terms that have, for some reason, and I really do find it bizarre, have become metastasized into triggering folks. Phrases like America first. But what that's really about, and if you talk to the people who proudly espouse that phrase, what they'll tell you is that they have been forgotten, that nobody is working for them. And it's hard to feel dignified when you're being ignored by the people who you elect to represent you. It sends a pretty strong signal that you're not worth very much. And I hear it all the time. Last year, my first year serving here, I took a phone call from one of my constituents, an elderly lady who lives by herself, and I couldn't help her with her problem. She called to complain about her property taxes, the valuation of her home. There's nothing I can do about that as a state legislator, but I listened to her anyway for a solid couple of hours, tell me her entire life story. And the summary of it was, I did what I was told. I followed the rules. I made good decisions. I paid my bills. I kept up my credit. I did all the things that everyone told me you're supposed to do all along the way. And now, in my twilight years, I'm facing the prospect of losing my house to the very government that was constituted to serve me. I've got another one here. This one was sent to me more recently this year. I'll just read a short excerpt from it. Have you even spoken to the average Minnesota citizen? Those of us who are broken beneath rising food costs, decreased donations which keep food shelves operational, rising gas costs. I've been working as a DoorDash delivery driver to bring home some money into our home. With gas prices continuing to rise, I'm unable to do even this. And prior to this, she disclosed that she adopted a child from Nigeria, and she's also taken in her elderly mother to care for her. So she's caring for 2 generations on either side of her as a middle-class individual. She tried to pay off some debt by taking on this extra work. And this is how she closes out. She says, now the final punch in the stomach, which doubled me over with grief, was when we had our 2023 taxes completed. The money that was necessary to pay off the debt so we could survive pushed us into the next tax bracket, and now we owe the state of Minnesota $3,000. Of course, we don't have it, so we borrow it and go right back into debt. Now, we did that to her. I'm using the collective we, the broad we of the state of Minnesota. We did that to this woman. We did that to the elderly lady I talked to last year, who's now looking back on a lifetime of serving her family and working diligently and following the rules, looking at potentially losing her house as a thank you from us. There's not a lot of dignity in that. And so this idea that we have to fork over part of the $3,000 that she now unexpectedly has to pay, that's going to be redistributed to folks who quite literally didn't follow the rules. That's the defining characteristic of their legal status in our country, is that they didn't follow the rules. And what we're saying today, what you're saying today, by voting green on this amendment to the amendment, is that those folks matter more than our folks. That those folks are somehow owed, by breaking our rules, the hard-earned money that was brought home by the folks who did. Go right ahead.